Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Taya, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys the process from start to finish of my digital art process. So I mostly draw portraits of like realism and semi-realism, but in today's video I decided to switch it up and draw a scene between two characters that I made. So enough rambling, let's get on to my digital art process. So the first thing that I do when it comes to an art piece is the sketch, and I use this flat marker that's defaulted in Clip Studio, and I use this soft ink marker by this name, which I don't know how to pronounce, but if you want that, I'll have it linked in the description. Before that though, I don't forget the references. You always need references to kind of put your idea together and have like a nice compile of ideas and styles that you're trying to go for. So yeah, my initial sketch I didn't get to record, but as you can see it's fairly rough, and I think that's really important when it comes to starting off a sketch, because if you start off too detailed, the piece can tend to look very stiff. So when you're starting off with your initial sketch, always just be loose. Just be loose with your sketch. As you can see, my under sketch is not detailed or anything. It's just initial shapes, and like you can even see in the background, that character in the back, you can't even make out what she looks like, but it's just an idea of how things are gonna look, very flowy and very loose. So everything can look flowy and not very stiff. You don't ever want your thing to look stiff. So next I do the background, and I'm not gonna lie, for this background it's very short, very sweet. I just use the tool, the shape tool, to create my background. I don't know much about backgrounds, so I can't really give you much about that, but that's what I used. So next I refine my sketch. I go in with specific details. I zoom in a lot more. This is where you actually need to zoom in close, get every little detail that you want to add, every line that you want to add onto your art piece. This is where I define the features, the facial features, the hair features, all that thing. This is probably the most important step, because this sets the foundation of how you're going to color, where your color is going to be, and where everything is going to go, like where all your highlights are going to go. So this is probably the second most important. The first most important is probably going to be the initial sketch, also the compile of references, because you can't start off anything without a good few references. But yeah, so right here I'm just refining my sketch. This braid technique I got from Likelihood Art here on YouTube. It's just this pattern that you see me doing and then curving the sides of the braid. So if you ever want to know how to do braids, that's one way that I do it, thanks to Likelihood Art here on YouTube. Now if you ever are trying to draw animals, I'm not very good at it. So as you can see, I don't draw animals. I mostly draw people, so I struggled a lot when it came to this.
Eventually.
But if you ever need help or want to learn how to draw animals, I suggest looking up good references and finding an artist who you can like reference off of that, or even cartoons that like animal cartoons is what I use. Animal cartoons like Tom and Jerry or something like that you can go off of so that you can simplify it. So it took me a while to do this, but always remember that you can draw anything as long as you have references. You can draw anything as long as you just keep working at it and keep trying to improve in that area. I'm not good with animals, but all it takes is just a picture and something I can reference off of and a few trials and errors. So yeah. So here I just continue to refine my sketch, but while I'm doing that, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about content and creating content as an artist. So obviously I'm very new here on YouTube, and I'm very new to the art community scene, but I just wanted to encourage anybody who's an artist out there to take that first step, because when it comes to making art, it can be very fun and very easy when you're just doing it and having fun with it. But I think it's really important to share your art with other people, because not only for them and to help them and motivate them, but also because it could help you and make you make connections and make better art overall with the help of the art community, because the art community is very tight-knit and it can be really helpful. And when you share your art with other artists, the better critiques can come out of it and better help can come out of it. So if you're thinking about sharing your art on social media or YouTube or whatever, then just take that step. Don't be set back by you may not have the best camera, or you don't know how to edit, or you don't know how to do this or that or whatever. It's just holding you back. So next, what I do is the line art. So the brush I use for the line art is it depends, because sometimes I want my line art to look very nice and neat and straight and very dark, but sometimes I want it to look sketchy and just like not too detailed or anything. So when I'm doing a dark and very precise line work, I usually use the default G pen in Clip Studio. And then when I'm doing like light line work that's very sketchy, like I'm doing here, I like to use the soft inker brush that I mentioned earlier. So yeah, I just basically just refine the sketch. Not even refine the sketch, but I just go over the refined sketch with darker lines and very more precise lines, more intentional lines. So so that's what I do with the line work. So back to what I was saying in the last clip about just starting your art. So I think it's very important to not hinder yourself when it comes to posting your artwork, because that's what most people do anyways. I mean, they look back, or me personally, I look back and I say, if I had started this earlier, where would I be now? So I think it's very important for us to not have any regrets and say, man, I could have started my YouTube, or man, I could have had this going already. So if you're thinking about starting to post your art on social media, I would say just start. Like, you don't need to be the best editor or the best, I don't know, content creator, best artist even. Like, sometimes I don't like posting my art because I'm like, man, I just want to get good first and then I'll post it. But everybody starts somewhere. Like, everyone starts somewhere. Sam Does Art started somewhere, you know, or what other artists, I really can't think of any right now that are really big, but they started somewhere. And if you go back far enough, you'll see their videos and they weren't great, but you all got to start somewhere. So if you're thinking about starting, just start. Just pick up the phone, open up the camera app, or go get your camera that you have, or go get your little iPhone, Android, whatever, and just set it up and record, or screen record, whatever you have to do. Just put some music behind it. You don't have to do a voiceover. You don't have to show your face or any of that. So if you're ever thinking about starting, this is your sign to do it now. On that same note, don't be discouraged whenever your art isn't popping in the beginning. It takes time to grow and progress, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't start. Here's a tip for you guys whenever you're creating a clipping mask for your characters and your art. Whenever you add your base color, duplicate your line art and then lock the layer and then color it the same color as your base color, and then after that merge that line color, the colorful line color, with your base color, and then your line art, your dark line art, make that into a multiply layer and then lock it and make it the same color as your base layer too. But don't forget to put it on multiply. And then after that, you can go in with your shadows clipped on top of your clipping mask, as you can see on the layers panel. Now for the buildings, again, I use the line tool to make straight lines, as you would see on like a real wall, and try to have the perspective kind of correct. I didn't use a reference for this one because I just wanted a simple background, just something I made up in my head. I didn't care too much about that because in the end I end up blurring the background a little bit, so just something to have. But next I do the color. The color stage is just first adding the base colors like I showed you in the masking tip. Just add the base colors to each thing or each object or person that's in my artwork. And once that's done, I move on to the rendering portion of the video. Now here is a clip of how I did the background lighting because I forgot to record it on my phone. Actually, I think my phone died whenever I was doing that, and I just didn't feel like waiting for it to charge to do that part. So now I move on to the rendering, where I just go in with shadows, highlights, blush, all the things that make the artwork look nice, that make it look real, that make it pop, you know. So I just go in first with the blush, and then I think I go in with the shadows and the highlights after. Now there's not much method to my coloring. My color theory, I don't know much color theory, but just what I've learned over time. I don't really have a set like routine or whatever for color theory, but if you guys want a video on how I personally go about colors, then leave a comment down below, like this video, and subscribe. So guys, like I'm doing here, whenever you're working on a piece and you get this far into it, never be afraid to like erase your line work and like rework it a little bit. Like you can do whatever you want to do with it, because I didn't like how the nose looked. It wasn't really what I envisioned, so I just erased the line work a little bit and went over it, especially when you're doing a messy line work like what I'm doing, it's simple, it's easy. You don't have to like worry about making the line like perfect anymore. And then there's always post-production, like just going over everything on top of, with one layer on top of the whole thing, which I think I'll show in the end of the video. But yeah, never be afraid to erase your line work, fix your line work, fix previous steps in your art piece. So here's a tip for shadows on skin. I do kind of have a theory for that. So when it comes to shadows for the skin color, what I like to do is I like to color pick the skin and then turn up the saturation and then darken it. And then I turn the color a little more towards red. So whenever you're trying to add shadows to your character, just turn your saturation up, move it a little more towards red, and then darken it. Okay, here I am just blurring the background elements so that the foreground is more the focus. So if you ever want to put focus on one thing in your piece, just blur the background or make the background less visible or less detailed. In my case, I'm just blurring it, but most of the time it would help to just put less detail in the background, which is why I didn't detail the girl in the back as much. But I mean, I did go kind of overboard. It wasn't my intention, but I did. But yeah, just blur the background to give the foreground more attention. I think I might have taken off the blur, but I added back on later. So for highlights, I like to use the add glow layer mode, and then I use like a really dark but saturated orange color, like an orangey red color, like you saw a second ago on the main character in the front. So yeah, I use like a dark, it's kind of like a brownish color, but it's more like orange, dark orange color for that. And then for the lights in the back, I am also using a add glow layer with that yellow, less saturated yellow, and then just kind of fading it out. And then I add that same glow to my character so it looks like the light is flashing on them. When doing lighting, it's important to kind of, I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's important to think about where the light is going to shine and how is it going to bounce off of things and stuff like that. So yeah, I put the color, the light shining on everything in its surrounding, like on the walls and on the refrigerator in the back, and on the couch and everything surrounding it. So yeah. Lastly, I do the final touches and refining of the piece. So yeah, I add the reflective light on the shadows of his neck, the highlights to the braids, the phone flashing light to his face, the comic, more blur and more lighting, and that's it. And here's the finished artwork. Thank you guys for watching. If you like this kind of content, be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below of what else you guys would like to see from me. Also, if you guys would like to see a more detailed version of my digital art process in the future, be sure to leave a comment down below. And thanks again for watching. Stay blessed.